Hey Exiles, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile video. Today I wanted to go through a question all streamers or all content creators get on a daily basis in PoE. And the question is, as the title suggests, how much is this item worth? So the question I have is, how do I then explain how you price check an item in a video that will persist for every league, no matter what build is meta and which builders are not? So the answer was very simple. I will go through certain tools and how to utilize them so that you're able to price check your own items after watching this video. But before we dive into this video, I'd love it if you do me the favor of hitting that like and subscribe button, as well as clicking that little bell next to it to get notified when I upload more content. It helps me as much as leaving a comment below the video. On top of this, I'd like to invite you to our Discord community, in which we talk about anything Path of Exile or other games related. The first tool I wanted to bring to light is an extremely useful website called PoE.ninja. In here you're able to check the current value of currency orbs as well as maps, fossils, or any unique item in the game. And this is very helpful to help determine a baseline value of both currency and items, as well as providing a good graph of the items or currency orbs value increase or decrease over the past up to the present. The website also allows you to visibly see when an item goes from one value down or up to another when things happen in the community, such as a new build being introduced to the meta, or when a patch note fucks over a build, which makes less people want to play with the items needed for that build, and therefore dump those items as soon as possible. Now, this whole process of understanding the meta is extremely crucial for the understanding of items' fluctuation of value. And this is why I will now move on to other tools you can utilize to actually price check your item in the current state of the game. So moving on from PoE.ninja, I want to talk about PoE.trade, which is the website I personally use for trading, and GGG's own website is pathofexile.com/trade. But since PoE.trade has existed long before GGG's addition to their own website, I've simply never moved away from it. So this video will be covering the utilization of PoE.trade in the pursuit of price checking items. To fully utilize PoE.trade in the pursuit of finding price checking items, there are a few things we have to talk about. And I'm going to talk about the unique items first because they are generally easier to determine values of. So I'm going to talk about the unique amulet Solstice Vigil that I'm currently wearing on my character. Now this item is having an implicit value, and there are some explicit mods. And to understand what that means, I'm just going to briefly mention this, as this will be covered in a crafting guide for beginners that I'll be making a little bit later. The implicit mod is above the line, giving 10 up to 16 all attributes, as you can see here on the video. And this is a modifier you usually can ignore because this can be easily rerolled with a very cheap Blessed Orb. So we're looking at the actual unique modifiers, which are the explicit modifiers of this item. It has a 20 up to 25% increased damage, it has 50 up to 70 life, 2 up to 3 mana regen per second, and the other ones are static numeric values. So with this information, we can now see that the 24% increased damage roll I have on my amulet is 1% off perfect. We also know that the life roll is pretty bad and the mana regen is pretty low. Now, we have the information at hand, at least from what we've seen on PoE.ninja. We also know, and based on the community, that this is an item being rather popular within a build, which is what I'm using right now, which is a Occultist CI Vortex character. Now, since most people already know that this is a build part of the current popular meta of builds being used in the game, we also know that life is completely useless for CI builds. So therefore, I can completely ignore the life roll when I'm searching for similar items to what I have to price check what this Solstice Vigil is worth. So what I start with is I'm going to type in the name, so Solstice Vigil, and we got that correctly spelled. Now I know that this will only search for this type of amulet. I will then take the mods that actually matters, which is mana regen and increased damage. Now, since I'm playing this specific build, I also know that I do not care about mana regen. This means that we're only looking at the increased damage, which makes this a very easy item to price check. Which means I'll be looking at increased damage. And as you can see here in the explicit roll, there is an explicit roll right here saying increased damage. Now we know that I have 24%, and to find something similar, I usually take a couple of percent lower than the value that you have. In this case, it's only a range between 20 and 25%. So what I will do, I will search for something that has at least 22 or 23%. So if I take 22% as the minimum roll available when I do the search, it will give me Solstice Vigils that has a minimum of 22% roll increased damage. And if I didn't click on the price here, it will list the lowest priced amulet available for sale up to highest. Now mine is not corrupted. The cheapest one available is 79 Chaos, which has changed the implicit value to increased rarity due to the corruption. 80 Chaos for a 23 Purity of Lightning. Anger has increased effect on 80 Chaos. This one has lower implicit but has a better damage roll, 80 Chaos. And you can see that there's a lot of list of these things, and some of the implicit values like an extra curse or stuff like that would actually be very, very valuable. And this is something that you learn from playing the game. But now we're looking at how to price check this specific amulet based on the information that we now see in front of us. If you look at it's not being corrupted, you could say that you can sell this easily for around 80 Chaos. But to avoid getting confused with this item that is non-corrupted versus corrupted versions, you can utilize the PoE.trade tool to simply check the corrupted part to no, and then do the search again. With this information, I can see that with the 23% roll, lower implicit, which again doesn't really matter, the price is around 90 Chaos. So I can with full confidence say that I should be able to sell this amulet between 80 and 90 Chaos pretty smoothly. But you can also see that the price range from the cheapest to the second cheapest non-corrupted goes up to 95 and rather soon up to 100 Chaos. If I'm not desperate for currency, this means I could potentially sell my item for 90, even up to 100 Chaos. So if you want to get more value out of your item and you're not stressing or in a desperate need of currency, you could put this item up for, let's say, 94 Chaos or even 99 Chaos to get this around these numbers. So when these people are offline, or not available for trade when someone is purchasing this type of amulet, they'll be landing in your lap. Unless, of course, they're looking for something with a worse roll just to get out the cheapest version. Other unique items that are very easily checked for trading, which is something I'm going to talk about, which is also the trade macro tool. I'll have a link for this in the description below, as well as the other websites. It's simply a tool that allows you to utilize it together with PoE.trade in a pretty smooth way. Now, I personally don't like that we have to use a lot of different third-party programs or websites to play this game in a full extent. So I don't actually use the trade macro, even though I in many cases should, because it makes my life a lot easier. I actually choose not to. The trade macro would in many cases say that items such as the Sintrek pair of boots, that they would be pretty garbage in terms of value in general. Now, the reason I'm talking about Sintrek is because this is a pretty common item that ranges from being complete garbage to being really valuable. And that is because it is very commonly used within energy shield builds because of the increased attributes with dexterity and intelligence, but most importantly is the energy shield can go up to 180 energy shield, but it also goes as low as to 120. As you can see here, you see that the cheapest available, even non-corrupted versions, they go for 1 Chaos Orb. No matter what type of attributes they have. You can even have higher attributes and they'll still only go for about 3 Chaos. If I then click on the energy shield or the shield number here, this will list the items with the highest energy shield available to the lowest. And you can see that if you're looking at a non-corrupted version with a bad enchant, such as the avoid being stunned, we can see that this one is already up on a 1.2 exalted value, which is significantly higher than the other ones. And this is all based off the energy shield increase roll that this item specifically has, which you can see here, ranging from 100 up to 150 flat energy shield. Now this one has an evasion roll, which is completely discarded in this specific item. This item is basically valued based off the energy shield it has. You can see a corrupted here, corrupted with an enchant going for 1 exalted. You can scroll down to see, or actually we can scroll up and do the search again, which are non-corrupted and even non-enchanted, just to see or give you guys a good look of what it actually means when you're looking at this type of item. Highest energy shield, non-corrupted, non-enchanted, with good values on the attributes are still going for 1.2 exalted. Around 1 exalted for 180 energy shield with a little bit worse stats. It's, like I said, a lot higher valued than the 1 up to 3, maybe 5 chaos that you would have seen otherwise. So it's items like this, and it's more specific when it comes to rare items, that I don't like using trade macro myself. However, the tricky part comes when it comes to rare items. So I'll be spending some time discussing or showing you guys how to utilize filter groups when looking at items. That doesn't require any type of knowledge around knowing which builds are meta and which builds are not meta. So I'm going to talk about jewels because they have the most amount of jewel modifiers available to roll on. This is a Bramble Vessel Crimson Jewel. It has increased physical damage with two-handed melee weapons. It has increased attack speed with staves. It also has increased melee damage. This weapon has therefore 2 modifiers that works for any type of two-handed weapon. It's the melee damage and the two-handed melee weapons increase damage. It also has a 3rd modifier that helps with staves. Now, the information that we need to value this item without knowing other similar items value would be just know the meta, knowing how many popular builds that there are out there that people are playing that uses staves and versus that are not using staves. Problem with this jewel is that it doesn't have any defensive nodes or mods, as many builds wants to have either life or energy shield on their jewels on top of some damage. But I'm going to show you how this one looks. So basically, the most important modifiers here is the fact that there are 3 damage ones for staves. If we're looking at stave-oriented jewels in general, what I would do in this case is I would add every type of modifier that I know can exist on jewels, which you can get by checking out PoE or PoE Affix. There's several websites giving you this, but I'm going to use the PoE database. However, it's a Taiwanese server, so you'd have sometimes be forced to add /US after the TW in the URL to get it to English. In here, I can check for jewel, and this is a crimson jewel, so I check the crimson jewel. In which case, I can now see all the different prefixes and suffixes that are available. Delves is only for fossil crafting, and Volorbs is a different outcome. So we're only looking at these modifiers right here. So with this information, and I know that there's increased melee damage and whatnot, I'm now going to move this over here. And I will show you how I utilize this. So we know that there's increased melee damage. I'm not looking at the numeric value at all. I just want to get as many modifiers I know that will work on the staves and see what we can get out of that. And in this case, I would then search for staves, and I know that this modifier I had was attack speed with staves. So I'll check staves and we'll do staves. I also see that I see a physical damage with staves being available, and I also see accuracy and crit multi, but we're only going to look at the attack speed and actual damage now. In which case we can then take a look at the modifiers available and see that we are going to ignore crit because this jewel has nothing to do with crit. And then we can see that we have nothing else on the prefix list, and therefore we go to the suffix list, and we're talking about increased melee damage, which we have added here. You also see increased attack speed, in which case we check attack speed, not the total mod. We're looking at this one, which means we're taking the attack speed. And I know there is one which is attack speed with a staff, which we have added. And I do believe there is one with a two-handed weapon, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to double, yeah, there we go. Two-handed attack speed. And then there is one with attack and cast speed, if I'm not mistaken. Implicit, increased attack, and cast attack speed. Increased attack and cast speed. Right there. And then we're gonna see if there's anything I've missed. I don't think we've missed anything that would increase the damage for staves. Now, what I will do here in PoE.trade is that my jewel only has 3 modifiers, being physical damage to two-handed weapons, 7% attacks with staves, and increased melee damage. So only the 3 of these modifiers. So what I then do is I change the and take count. Now this will specify the number of mods that should be matched on my search. Now we have 3 of these modifiers, so I'll search for 3. Any 3 combination of these modifiers should be existing on the jewel that I search for. So then I type jewel up here in the type of item, and I will simply search for this type of filter group. I will then see that there are plenty of available modifiers. I even see one with increased stun duration on enemies. I even see that there's some very similar rules to what I have, a lot of them with extra attack speed and whatnot, and we can already determine that this one is completely completely useless or worthless actually. However, if we then take a look at something else that we might have, see if we can find something more useful for us that has energy shield. We then take a look at this type of jewel right here. We'll go back up to this jewel as a type. We'll scrap this entire process, and we'll take energy shield, which I have a percent base off on this one. I also have strength on it, so we'll take strength. We'll also take increased spell damage while holding a shield. Now, the spell damage can work in many different ways. So in this specific search, I'm looking for something that has an attribute being specifically strength with energy shield, and then I want to have a modifier that gives me damage. In this case, I would type and. This means that whatever I search for will have to include these two modifiers, and I will then add a filter group. In this filter group, I will add anything that will increase damage when I'm holding a shield, which could be increased spell damage in general, increased spell damage when I'm holding a one-handed weapon, or anything in regards to that, which means I will go back to the jewel here. I'll take the cobalt jewel, as this is a cobalt jewel. And it's in English, great. And here I will then search for spell damage. Now here I can take increased spell damage. I can take spell damage, see if we can find it, whilst holding a shield, which is the modifier we have. We can take increased spell damage. See if we can find anything else. Let's double check the list. And there are some elemental damage, which would be more targeted towards specific elements, which would also be something you might want to add to check this one. But spell damage scales all type of elements, so let's just stick with generic spell damage modifiers right now. And we see that there is nothing else we could really bother in terms of actual damage. We check the suffix list. There is nothing really we can add. So in here, oh, that's actually not the right one. That's block, my bad. Spell damage whilst holding a shield. There we go, now that's the right one. And then I will do the count and have one of these modifiers. So this specific search will bring me jewels that has percent energy shield and strength, and then it will have one out of these modifiers being either spell damage or spell damage while you're holding a shield. And I've specified that it's going to be a jewel. Then I click search, and in here I will then see that the outcomes are extremely cheap. Again, this jewel is not very good. The reason I'm using it is because my build actually needed the strength. As you can see, I can't use my gear pieces, so it's actually the gems because of the lack of strength I have. As you can see, the cheapest one is 1 chaos because it lists the cheapest. It's more expensive. But I can also see that right after this one, they go up to 5 chaos. In this case, I would have to actually check the numeric values that I have. Now I have 7% and increased energy shield, which goes up to 8%, but I also have 16 strength and 16% increased spell damage, which means that my item would actually be quite a lot better than this specific roll right here. It would be quite a lot better than this. But then again, this one has intelligence. It could be valued for other builds. But right below it, we have 8 with less energy shield, less damage. And this one right here is more in line with what I have, but this one still has a lower amount of strength. But this one also packs dexterity. So what I would say when it comes to price checking this one specifically, I'd say the item is worth between 5 and 10 chaos. Because right down here, we have something that is very similar with the same damage. It just has lower stats in terms of strength, but has more intelligence. So again, I would place my item around 5 to 10 chaos in this specific case by simply utilizing the different type of filter groups that you can use when you're searching for items. And this goes for pretty much any type of item that you want to search for. I will do one more. I know this video might be a little bit longer than I anticipated, but for the sake of showing you guys the value of certain items, I'm going to show you one more, as this is a pretty tricky part to learn, but once you get the hang of it, it's very, very easy. Gloves, for example. This one has 215 energy shield. It also has dexterity because of a benchcraft. Now, benchcraft is one of the most trickiest things to learn, which I'll go through in a craft guide. I hold down Alt here, I'll see that this one has 3 prefixes, and it has 1 open suffix, which I've benchcraft with quality and dexterity, and quality increases the gain of energy shield on this piece of glove. So this glove has 215 energy shield, so I want to search for something below that. Let's take about 20 below. Let's search for 190 minimum energy shield. I don't want to find the absolute biggest one, so it doesn't really matter. So let's search for 250 as a maximum. It also has cold resistance 40%. So what I do, instead of searching for specifically cold resistance, I will then instead take pseudo total amount elemental resistances. In here, I will take quite a lower value than what I have. So I will search for 30% minimum amount of cold rest. I don't want to see the ones that are vastly better in resistance than what I have. I will cap this on 65%. And that's basically all I have to search for in this specific one, because the craft itself gives dexterity. I don't want to look at the available options that has dexterity as available modifier. But then see the cheapest version available has bench crafted life and energy shield to reach a lower amount of energy shield than what I have, has lower amount of cold resistance, and no attributes. Now I can remove the attributes and get other attributes like strength and quality or intelligence and quality, or simply drop the quality entirely, which would give me the option to get more resistances or any other suffix craft that I would want in this. The second item here is enchanted. Let's not ignore the enchant for now. It has lower resists than what I have. It also has benched energy shield, still lower than what I have, meaning that my gloves should theoretically be worth more than this. Accuracy is one of those modifiers that only applies to certain melee builds. And if we look further down, we see that this item, same thing here, lower amount of resistances. It has a lower energy shield, and it's already benched with energy shield to be able to reach this number in the first place. Let's kind of scroll down a little bit, and we find out this is 90 chaos. This is about the same resistance as I have, or more even. Still lower energy shield, no benchable options, but it has open slots that you can exalt spam if you want, or exalt slam it if you so will. But that's an expensive gamble, and therefore not part of this video. So looking further down to getting close to what I have in terms of energy shield, we're looking at 200 something plus. We can see that there's a 206 with almost exact the amount of resistance that I have. No attributes, more outside the 9 intelligence, going for 110 chaos. I can already now feel that this item should be somewhere between 110 and 150 chaos based off what I've seen so far. Because right now I feel that my gloves with the dexterity available option to change this to dexterity or strength or intelligence through the benchcraft will better value than this piece right here, going for 110 chaos. And if we then scroll further down, we see that this one has more rest, lower energy shield. This one is benchable with quality and its attribute. Now this one also has fire attacks, which allows it to be used for many other types of builds, allowing it to be more versatile and easily sold, but it should be worth about the same as what I have, because this one can actually be brought up to the point of energy shield as I have. So I would say that now that we've seen this item, I can feel rather confident in saying that my glove is worth between 110 and 120 chaos instead. I don't think it should be worth more than that because of how this person has priced his gloves at 120 chaos. So that's basically how I value rare items and look at what's important and the modifiers that are important to be pricing your stuffs at. And this is just one out of a lot of different ways you can utilize PoE.trade. But what is important is how you utilize the different type of filter groups like I showed you earlier in the earlier searches we did. It's all about learning how to utilize this tool so that you can find items close to your value. Now, the last question or the last topic I want to talk about when it comes to price checking is when you cannot find something similar to what you have. And there's another topic as well, what happens when the item doesn't sell, and those two topics will be covered in this answer. If you are unable to find anything similar, even trying to get even as close to half the item or mods on your item, what is very important at that point is that you have to decide yourself, because you would then set the price of that market, of that specific type of item that you're selling, that you will be the one dictating the starting price for those type of items. You put it up for a price that you think it's worth, that you think that it would be comfortable for you to sell it as. In which case you can put an item up for a little bit more than you think it's worth. And then if you're getting spammed with offers, that's a really good indicator that you might have put it up for a lot less than what it's actually worth. You could also put it up for a lot higher, and then simply lower the price every second or third day, a little bit every now and then, till it eventually sells. And that's also something you have to do when it comes to items that are generically hard to price. And that's basically how you do it. That's how you price check in PoE, and how I would do it, and how I would go about price checking your items. You simply utilize the tools of filter groups on PoE.trade. You search for similar items, and if you cannot find that, you put the item up for sale, and then you lower the price every couple of days till it sells. And this is something you can do with items that you did find similar items with. Because not always, though, not always is that an indicator that this is the actual price, because the demand of items will always dictate the value of an item, which is why it doesn't matter if you ask a streamer or content creator what they think an item is worth. Because I could look at this amulet, or this jewel, and I could tell you that, hey, I think that's worth 10 exalted orbs. You would put it up for 10 exalted orbs, and it would just sit there and never get sold. Because if you would look at the market, it was actually worth less than 1 chaos orb and being completely useless. So with that said, put things up for sale, and even if you found similar items and you think that you match the price, if it doesn't sell in a couple of days or a week, whatever you feel comfortable with, drop the price a little bit till it eventually sells. And it also depends, if you are desperate for currency, then you can always undercut the entire market with a chaos and try to get it sold as soon as possible. Anyways, guys, I hope my rant didn't sound too ranty. Is that even a word? Doesn't matter. Hope you guys found this video useful. Really appreciate it if you could throw me a comment down below the video, what you guys think about the price check-in in general. Do you think that I missed something that I should have said? In that case, please make sure that you guys enlighten the other viewers and myself, so that we can make sure that new players coming in, or refugees from Diablo 3 running from the whole phone fiasco, gets the information so that they can determine the value of their items in Path of Exile. Guys, till next time, as always, stay safe and keep rocking.